Welcome back to the Leadership Edge. This is the podcast where we cut through the noise and get real about leading with courage, candor, and heart. I am Joe Glaser. Today, we're going to talk about one of the most transformational leadership shifts I personally have ever made: building a culture of ownership, not just in theory and not as a poster on the wall in the break room. I'm talking about the kind of culture where every person on your team owns their own performance and behaviors, their own impact. Because here's the truth: if you want a high performing team, you can't lead by holding the reins by yourself. Let me take you back for a second. Over the past 25 years, I've been through it all: new teams, broken teams, high functioning teams. And what I've learned is this: when people don't feel ownership, they fall into survival mode. They wait. They hope someone else fixes the problems. They check boxes instead of creating outcomes. But when you build a culture that expects individual performance ownership, your team starts acting like entrepreneurs. They own their own numbers, they own their own effort, and they own their own impact. And the wild part is they start leading themselves, even when no one is looking. Now, one of the biggest shifts that I've had to make myself is I had to stop being the fixer, the restorative leader. I had to start being the developer. That's what decentralized command is all about. Now, that doesn't mean chaos, it means clarity. You define the mission, you communicate the expectations, and you trust your people to execute. I don't need to be in every decision. I don't need to be in every conversation, every cell. What I need is a team that understands the why behind our work and is confident enough to act without hesitation. When leaders cling to decision making, power, and everything else, they feel in control. But what they're actually doing is creating bottlenecks and burnout and dependency. And let's call that what it is. That's not leadership, that's micromanagement with a fancy title. Here's the expectation I set with my team: treat your role like it's your own business. I asked them, if this was you Inc., would you be satisfied with your results? Would you know your numbers? Would you be proud to present your performance? And would you hustle for growth or wait for direction? Because when people think like business owners, everything changes. They don't just participate, they produce. They don't just clock in, they compete. They don't deflect, they own it. You're now developing entrepreneurs, people with an entrepreneurial spirit inside a team environment. And I'm telling you, that energy is so contagious. Ownership changes more than just your performance, it changes culture. It creates gravity. It pulls the right people in and pushes out the ones who aren't ready to lead themselves. You'll start hearing different language like, here's what I accomplished this week, or I ran into a challenge and here's what I tried. My numbers are off this week, but hey, I've got a plan to fix that. When that's the tone of the room, you know something is working. Accountability isn't something you have to enforce anymore. Accountability starts chasing you. But this only happens when we as leaders model it first. If I'm not living it, why would I expect anyone else to? So, now let's talk a little bit about how to build and implement this type of culture. First off, you have to clarify the vision and the mission and the metrics that will measure where you're at. Your team can't own it if they don't understand. They need to know what they're responsible for. They need to know what success looks like, and how it's measured. We have to create visibility. Performance should be visible, not to shame, but to inspire. Whether it's on dashboards, whether it's in huddles, whether it's through one on one conversations, make it all about growth. We have to model the mindset. Leaders go first. We share our performance, we own our mistakes, and we celebrate our wins in real time. We need to coach for decisions and not for compliance. Don't just give answers, ask questions. Help our teams think. We need to reward ownership and not just outcomes. The results matter, but so does the effort. So we need to celebrate those who act like their name is on the building. And you're going to have to hold steady in the gray. Mistakes are going to be made, and we need to allow our team that time to make them and recover. That helps build confidence. Building a culture of ownership isn't quick, and it's definitely not clean. And it is very rarely comfortable, but it is 100% worth it, because when your building doesn't rely on pressure, it runs on pride. It's amazing. So I'll leave you with this challenge. Give your people the why behind the work. Train them like owners, push decision making to the front lines, and celebrate the ones who show up like CEOs of their own success. Because when everyone owns the outcome, no one carries the weight alone. Leave you with this. Thank you for tuning in to the Leadership Edge this week. I hope this episode helps shift your thinking, and please send it to a fellow leader. Um, I am always looking for your biggest takeaways, insight, and even suggestions to make this podcast better. But for now, we'll see you next time. Keep leaning forward and never forget, the edge belongs to those who own it.